I'm resident of Collinwood, Joel Sains for YouTube. Join my buddy Gordon Dymowski, my buddy Patrick McCray. We're here to discuss Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. Really, really interesting movie, for sure. Very cause and effect, if you will.
Well, that's the Russ Meyer style. It's just shot, 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 shot. It keeps you going.
Can I tell you my biggest issue with this movie?
Please.
Yeah, please.
The summation after, I don't think it's needed.
Actually, okay, Joel. I think the one thing you need to understand, you do understand that this movie is a satire. That may explain a lot, and that ending little monologue is actually makes the whole movie fit.
Fit, maybe,
and I know it's easy to say and I know it's very easy to be like, let me assert this, that it's always easy when you watch a piece, especially a piece that's been done, to be armchair screenwriter, etc. I think that the summation helps make the movie fit, because it is a satire. One part of the things it satirizes is the old 1950s and 60s melodramas, and I think one, it works, and two, Joel, it was written by Roger Ebert. So you want to talk smack about Roger Ebert? I think, Joel, you better behave, because I have this. I will open this and I will read a random chapter, like.
He could be a Gene Siskel man.
I think there's a look.
No.
There's a difference between explaining something, but I'm not saying they do this to do what I'm about to say, but I feel them doing the summation at the end, because to me, it's a very clear-cut movie. Like, they don't lose you in the frame of the movie at all, in my opinion. I feel that summation isn't needed, because once you do that, to me, you're sort of treating your audience like they haven't been paying attention for the past hour and some odd minutes. And this movie doesn't. It grabs your attention very well. So I don't really love the summation at the end, because it's like, okay, if you were just going to give me
Joel, I think Patrick would like to say something.
Go ahead. That's all right.
Okay, so yeah, Joel, I see where you're coming from completely. Would you believe that you and Russ Meyer are on the same page? It's all true. There's a historical context here that we need to talk about. When Jimmy Stewart made, no, I'm just kidding. There's a historical context that we need to talk about. So, adult films were in a very sketchy area when Russ Meyer was making them. I mean, yeah, you could make them independently, but a lot of it was you'd have to take them yourself, town to town to town. And there weren't even really adult theaters. And certainly these were not hardcore movies or anything like that. I mean, they just have a flash of this or that. So to not get harassed by judges, the films had to contain a morally redeeming social value. So if you see a lot of these movies, and I have, what you'll notice is that the movie will sort of gleefully have its fun. Yeah. And then there will be some incredibly strident moral message that, everybody comes to, it comes to ruination by the end of the movie for being involved in this sort of thing. And the filmmakers were forced to include this stuff. And the more heavy-handed they were, the more they could hide behind it if a judge went after them, because it would have socially redeeming value. So when Russ got in the position to make this movie, he it was just a reflex for him. B, he and Roger wanted to do a parody of that. So that's a little bit of you had to be there that audiences at the time for Russ's movies would have picked up on.
Yeah.
So that's where that comes from. And so, yeah, it is part of the satire. If you don't if you're not entirely, familiar with the nudie cutie or the roughy genre or any of that, it does seem a little foreign. To me, the descriptions the narrator gives are funny enough, and they're sort of over the top enough, and it's like Sam the Eagle from the Muppets, in their stentorian seriousness, that that kind of condescension is sort of it for me. It's funny. They are making fun of that sort of thing rather than embodying it.
Yeah. I'm just not a fan of because once you do that for me, it's like I've just spent an hour and some odd minutes watching your movie, understanding your movie, watching each character and all that. And for you to just tell me why maybe the characters did what they did and, what they went on, this, that. I'm just like, okay. Once you do that for me, it's a very turn-off thing for me.
Betrayed you. It stabbed you in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it just is. It's not something... I can understand if your movie is very complicated to understand. It's not. Not at all.
But part of the joke of that ending is that what it's basically saying is, because it was part of that whole you need a moral message, it's basically the filmmaker saying, yeah, we know you saw that, and we're making fun of the fact that in other movies like this, they will tell you what you've just seen and what you should learn. And I don't think that 1 or 2 minutes ruins the whole movie. You could take it out and you'd still have the same film, but I think it just adds a little bit of a knowing kind of, hey, look, yeah, we know you expect to see this, so we're just going to do it goofy.
It is making fun of the sort of narration that you would have at the completely unnecessary narration you would have. You gotta trust me. He is satirizing that sort of thing rather than legitimately embodying it as something he thinks the audience needs.
Okay. So when did you guys first see this movie? I know when I did.
I saw this movie in 1993. And friend of mine named Tobin Fields had seen it in San Francisco in an old balcony laden movie theater, and the audience loved it. And audiences typically love this movie. I mean, it is considered sort of the precursor to Rocky Horror. And Tobin recalled from the end of this, it's an epic film. And at the end of it, a drunk stood up next to him and said, "That's the best movie I ever saw." And Tobin was hard pressed to disagree.
Yeah, I saw it a little later. I saw it when it first came out on DVD, because for the longest time, Fox didn't even acknowledge that this existed. And it's a movie that takes... I mean, it took me like 2 or 3 viewings to really kind of get comfortable with it.
Jordan?
What happened there, pal?
Unique tone that very... Some people... Yeah. Can you see me? Hello?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you were cutting in and out.
Okay. No problem. I essentially, it's saw it on home video, and It took me a while to get it because it was just one of those. It just did it. A unique tone that it wasn't just. Would have been easy for me to go the first time and go, this movie is just weird. It's a very sly sense of humor. It's a very kind of, and unless and it took me a while because I was also learning about Russ Meyer's films, where they all have a kind of unique humor and tone and fascination, shall we say. And like the third time, it's like, I really love this film. I don't think there's a false note in it, because it's kind of a multi-level satire, because it's at first it's a satire of Valley of the Dolls, where Fox had the rights to the novel. They did the original movie. They created the title for the sequel. Several scripts went through, and then Jacqueline Suzanne, the writer of Valley of the Dolls, said, "Nope, you do anything with my characters, I'll sue." So, and Fox at the time was losing money, so they brought in Russ Meyer and Roger Ebert, and basically they told him, "Hey, look, if you have to choose between cheap and good, make it cheap." That's why you don't have too many known actors in this movie. And the fact that, and even Ebert said it, Meyer said it, the fact that they got away with so much in this movie. So there's that satire. There's a satire of those late 50s, early 60s melodramas that have the lecturing lesson. You've got little in-jokes to then contemporary culture. You also have the kind of typical show business melodrama. So it's one of those that, and it's not one of those movies that goes, get it? It's not Austin Powers level satire where it's like, get it? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's very clever and it's very fun.
Although it is quoted at the very beginning of the first Austin Powers movie, word for word, where Austin is at the Electric Pussycat Psychedelic Swingers Club, and he turns around and said, "This is my happening," and it freaks me out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think too that what I really like about this film is there is a nice drive to it, because like Meyer never believed in like dissolves or fancy cutting. It was always set up. He also, I think part of the reason why Fox hired him was because he had a history of putting together his movies, getting the distribution, and getting them out. They probably figured, okay, we're hiring a guy to do our work for us.
Russ had just finished, well, not just finished, but had recently finished a movie called Vixen, and which involves an erotic dance with a fish, Jewel. A fish.
Yeah, Jewel, you should go seek that movie out right now.
Fun movie. It's a fun movie. But in Vixen, he took a very small budget. I think he made the thing for like 20 grand. And he made millions with it. I think Vixen still to this day has one of the greatest sort of cost to benefit ratios of any movie ever made. And at the time, it was a phenomenon. And it started to get written up in, Variety and things like that. And 20th Century Fox paid attention. And they kind of went to him and they said, "Can you make that kind of money for us?" Because what they had been doing is they had some huge movies. They had Cleopatra, gigantic movie, gigantic flop. Hello, Dolly, gigantic movie, gigantic flop. And a few others. And they were awash in red ink. They had no idea what was going to make money, but they knew that Russ Meyer could. And Meyer was an interesting guy because he was also very responsible. He ran his movies like military campaigns because he had been General Patton's photographer and filmmaker, the guy who followed Patton around. That was young Russ Meyer. And he went from that to photographing Playboy in the early days of Playboy magazine. And if you put those two sensibilities together, you get Russ Meyer. And the reason why we don't talk as much about Russ Meyer now, especially with the death of the movie theater, is that the movie theater died, especially the small independent movie theater died, right around the time that Russ Meyer did. And everything shifted to the internet. And Russ, God bless him, retained the rights to all of his movies except for Beyond the Valley of the Dolls and The 7 Minutes. And so if you wanted to get one of his movies, you bought a videotape of it, it came from Russ Meyer's garage. If you wanted a print of one of those movies, it came from Russ. You sent it back to Russ. Well, unfortunately, Russ suffered from elder abuse, and the control of his films has been very questionable. It was very poorly managed. And so he's this incredibly important filmmaker. I mean, I defy you to do much research on Russ Meyer and not come across one genius after another proclaiming him to be one of the great American filmmakers. It's absolutely true. And yet his films have kind of vanished into this strange quagmire where, you know, you're lucky if you come across one of them. Now that'll change one day. You know, hopefully Criterion or another group like that will get the Russ Meyer canon and do something right with it. But right now, it's tough. And so you have this incredibly influential guy, a bright guy, a really great action filmmaker, an excellent cutter. I mean, someone who just plans what he does meticulously. This had the I think it was the cinematographer Bridge Over the River Kwai or Patton. Yeah, look up Fred Cohenkamp. I mean, he really got good people at Fox to work with him and made an incredibly disciplined movie because, you know, this movie appears to be a mess. With so many characters, so many storylines, and yet it is unbelievably precise. And Russ was a master of control on these things. So, yeah. Fred Cohenkamp's name shows up in all sorts of stuff.
What's something that I'm trying to think of what to ask for this movie?
Well, that's a sign of a good movie that you don't have to ask too many questions about it.
Yeah. I mean, have you read any of Roger Ebert's like reminiscences of making the movie?
No. I just watched
There's a lot of really good readable stuff out there, brief too.
I watched the movie here tonight at about 7:00. And
Biographies of Russ Meyer.
So what's that? So I was watching the movie. I found it very interesting. They take 3 women who are in a band together. The one man who is the sinner's boyfriend and seems to be the girl's manager to a degree. Collects the money. Then they go out to California. Now, that's not how the movie starts, but I like how the movie starts where it starts near the end where you're going to wind up with the gun in the girl's mouth where she's laying naked on the bed. And she screams, and then it cuts to a girl singing, and it's like, okay, this is interesting. So the movie gets your attention right away, which I like. I like the fact that I like the way they shoot California very much, very, very creative, and I love the way they shoot the indoor sequences because it does. Even though you have a lot of people in this room, they don't make it feel claustrophobic. Like they don't.
Very good with that. Yeah.
I like that because
he can good shots.
Yeah, I mean, it's really they get everybody who's in the scene. and not just the main characters either, everybody who's at the party, which is really cool. I mean, it might seem minuscule to some, but I like that because it lets you know, like, it from a storytelling standpoint, hey, anybody could be important in this party, which is like, okay. The one girl who's related to the sinner has money or something, and she's going to give her some of the inheritance.
That's right, Aunt Susan.
Yeah, I love how you have each character who has their own, whether it's motive or agenda or just like the lawyer's greedy. The lawyer has his own agenda. Aunt Susan is a very pure character to a degree. I like that the niece, the sinner, is, she gets some advice from, the manager sinner, and it's like I like how the girls
saying singer or sinner?
Singer. She's a singer.
Okay, SING. Okay, yeah.
The girl's a sinner. And so I like how they perform the songs, really well choreographed, really well done. The shots are really great too when they're on stage. Overall, the movie is a fun watch. I mean, it's not boring. It doesn't. Sometimes there are movies that lose you. This movie won't at all. The characters are because each character has their own sort of story within the story that's going on, in a sense. They each character has an interaction. Some characters have an interaction with the girls. Some characters have an interaction with someone else. I like how you're getting different characters in this movie that, though they don't directly affect each girl in the band, they do affect some degree of the movie, which I like. I think that's a very smart character building within, again, under 2-hour movie. Very smart. Go ahead, guys.
Now you see the Manson family connections, of course. The big ritual murder at the end, that at the party goes wrong. Yeah, and of course the fact that in Valley of the Dolls starts Sharon Tate.
No.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, and especially looking back, the fact that the murders are committed by basically a Phil Spector parallel, who later went to jail because he actually shot a woman in his home. And I think it's one of the strengths of the movie is that it's the audience at the time would have been saying, "Oh, well, we know who that is, who that is." But there's also some really transgressive moments that just fly by, where Z-Man is like, one is where Z-Man's talking to the Nazi, to Martin Bormann, and he's giving orders and says, "Don't forget to turn off the ovens." I mean, that's not something. I'm sure there are people who in the theater at the time going, "What? What did he just say?"
Yeah. And this is very much a movie in the world of the Dark Shadows actors, because many of them were of the age that this cast is made. Michael Blodgett and all that easily could have been Chris Pennock. There is a lot of crossover there. And you think Catherine Lee Scott and her Playboy connection and so on and so forth. And two of the three singers were in Playboy, and I know that she knows at least one of them, the lead, Dolly Martin, who married Dick Martin of Rowan and Martin's Lafayette. So, and was the first British playmate, and worked in the London Playboy Club as a bunny.
Cool. I have a very sort of strange question, because
Sure.
What did that ever stop you?
No, Joel. This movie seems like it made you sad.
this movie gets into fame in a sense too, like because it's about three girls who are in a rock and roll band, so it somewhat gets into fame to a degree. My question isn't so much about the movie, but when you look at like true crime in Hollywood history, like what's a Hollywood murder that shocked you both the most? Whether solved or unsolved.
Come on, Black Dahlia. You see the pictures of that, you'll never be the same.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
See, here's the thing. I'm not really a true crime guy. So for me, when it comes to like things like murders, it's not that I tune out, but I kind of go like, I don't have this fascination for things that intrigue me. So it's not like I could say, well, the only ones that come to mind are the O.J. Simpson murders, but that was because it was plastered all over the media. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go seek out this interesting thing. It's more like, yeah, but I really don't. And plus, I've read a lot of like mysteries and James Ellroy and noir stuff, so it's like, why, it's not something that I necessarily want to have a fascination with. I do think it's a really interesting take, the movie, because when you look at who created it, you've got Roger Ebert, who is starting as critic for the Sun-Times. In fact, he was taking time off to write this movie. Mm-hmm. And the only reason why he never continued as a screenwriter is that the Sun-Times basically said, okay, you got a choice. You can either come back to work for us or you can be, it's either us or it's the screenwriting. You can't do both. And as a film critic, it's an obvious ethical choice. At this point, Meyer was developing a reputation, but he was developing a reputation as an exploitation director, as a maker of dirty movies. Never mind the fact that, he, behind the scenes, he and his second wife, who was his ex-wife after a time, but they still worked together, were putting together the deals, marketing, on top of doing all the actual logistics for making the film. They were doing most of the business end of it. So they're approaching Hollywood, and I'm sure that like when they got the deal from Fox, they weren't thinking, "Oh yeah, we made it." You've got a guy who's been like, "Hey, these dudes are snobs. They're calling me an exploitation director. I'm going to show them." And you've got a film critic who's like, "You know what? I've seen enough bad films from Fox. I know how to make a film that is at least somewhat engaging. And you know what? If they don't like it, they can drink my the black sperm of my vengeance on the rocks." Yeah. Which is a great line.
Now, Jewel, that seems so sad right now that none of this like outrageous dialogue made you giggle. Ere this night doth wane, you shall drink the black sperm of my vengeance.
No,
it did.
No. I'll say this, that
which Jewel,
with certain, like, because famous people do get murdered and stuff, but to me, like, the most famous sort of murder committed, in not so much Hollywood, but in California, I would say would be the Zodiac killings. Now, that's not famous in the sense of someone famous got killed, but the killer, though unknown, became famous in a sense.
Okay.
Now, the Black Dahlia, yeah, I learned all about the Black Dahlia in 5th grade. Thank you, Mr. Elias. That was fun. But I learned a lot of different things from my history teacher, which was interesting. Here's a girl who wanted to be famous, and became famous because she died, and
Uh-huh.
her murder remains, unsolved. Now, some people believe that the person who killed the Black Dahlia was actually, who was it? It was it was the same killer who tortured, who kept writing letters to Elliot Ness. I forget his name. The guy who kept writing letters to Elliot Ness. They think that's the same person,
Yeah.
but whether it is or isn't, I don't know. Um, Again, it's really interesting. This movie made me think of those things because these girls are coming to a world where, when you think of California and you think of fame and Los Angeles and trying to become famous, here's these girls who are in a very dangerous world, and not just literally, but Hollywood itself is a very dangerous world where, for as many friends who people who claim to be your friends would rather put a knife in your back. Or in this case, you have women who are in the same band as you, who are your friends, and then there are people around you who you meet who are wanting to become your friends, but their intentions may not be the most pure.
Do
I
you
think,
feel that way, Jewel, in life? Do you feel that way?
well, no, but I really enjoyed this movie for what it was trying to do. I do enjoy it for the most part. I didn't find it funny. If you guys did, that's great.
Things funny though. That's the odd thing, is that you find all sorts of sort of campy, morbid things hilarious.
Well, I mean, okay. Let me put it to you this way. I'll make an odd comparison. There's a difference between like a silly, just in horror movies. There's a murder committed by, let's say, Jason Voorhees that is so ridiculous you can't help but laugh because it's fake.
So a beheading of an obviously fake head to the 20th Century Fox fanfare by an insane disguised transsexual calling herself Superwoman, it doesn't meet the mark of satire. For it's not quite outrageous enough. I just want to make sure I have this here.
Well, I'm not saying there's not outrageous moments in this movie. I
Do you
just don't.
Superwoman as a threat?
Well, no, I just don't find it. Look, I'm not saying this movie can't be funny to other people. I'm sure it is.
Uh-huh.
But to me, I didn't find the humor in it. I more found the seriousness in it than what you guys did, and that's all. That's well and good.
And I think I think part of it too is that I think the movie sets up so much before that end scene. Like, I think part of the reason why they did that stuff in the beginning was to kind of go, okay, it's going to be grim, then we're going to go light and build up to that point. And I think it's easy to focus on the murder part because, it's like, ooh, wow, it's grim in this kind of, lighthearted movie. And that's the thing about satire, is that satire is not meant to be like a Marx Brothers movie where it's just laugh, 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 laugh. And Jewel, if you dared knock on the Marx Brothers, I swear to God, I'm going to head there, and we're going to have words. I'm going to read several chapters from this book.
Who's the Marx Brothers? Who are they?
Now stop that.
Oh,
now, Jewel, seriously, are you actually saying who's the Marx Brothers?
No, I know who they are. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, because you saw Devil's Rejects.
Okay, because I was about ready to just pick a chapter and start reading, Jewel. But no, this is not a movie that's geared to drive like big, huge belly laughs. It drives the humor of recognition. Like, yeah, that's absurd. Yeah, that's, especially when you listen to the dialogue in another movie, it has that kind of heavy, leaden cadence of like something of like a 1950s studio pot boiler.
Yeah.
It's Porter Hall talking about she smokes marijuana cigarettes.
Reefer.
Who talks like that?
Yeah, and then he did knowingly adds reefers.
I think the movie is really good. I mean, again, I don't find it funny the way you guys do. I think it's more of a serious movie than what it makes it out to be. Maybe even, I do think that, like, to me, the funniest moment, like, the moments that made me laugh in this movie are just like, okay, the lawyer walking in and he sees like these naked women and he's staring. It's like you're laughing at that because this is like really dude, like that's funny to me because it's like
So you didn't laugh when Baxter Wolf comes in, tells Aunt Susan, "Hey, I've always loved you," and the woman he's with like gets upset and leaves because that wasn't the least bit humorous.
no. Oh.
I mean, because it's such a contrived moment. You know what I mean? I mean, there's weight, but it's also like you got to be kidding because everything is like a bad '50s soap opera. It's in that it's meant to be so obvious that this is fake.
Yeah.
But I will say that Baxter Wolf does breathe kind of a really nice life into the second half. I will say that.
That one guy who with the blonde hair in this movie, I would have loved to seen Roger Davis play that character. I'll say that.
Well, what did you think of Charles Napier? You got to be a big Charles Napier fan. No, seriously, he's in Rambo.
Why do I think, Patrick, that you and I are going to win a bet?
But Charles Napier is a really, really, really talented character actor. Okay.
Yeah, and he loved Russ Meyer. He and Russ worked over and over and over together. Seriously, look him up.
I know, but I just like, to me, like, with this movie, how do I put this? I don't look at the movie and go, because it has again, you guys talk about cheap, and it has, okay, Charles Napier aside, who is known, but not so known like you pick him out of a lineup in this movie.
Well, this was early in his career. I think the only other thing he did at this point was he was a space hippie in Star Trek.
He had done some Russ Meyer features.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm talking about things that would be in the public consciousness.
Sure, yeah.
With this movie, I like the fact that you have what gives it sort of its feeling is you don't have big names in this movie. You have unknown names of unknown actresses and actors, and it gives a very, very serious tone to the movie of, okay, anything could happen to anybody here. And I like that fact because it gives the movie that sense of unpredictability. I like the fact that in again under 2 hours, the characters you meet, you're getting that character, each character. The one man who dates the drummer, every character. I like that because it's not just about the 3 women. Yes, it is about them, but it's about the other people too around them, which is really good. Go ahead. Is there anything you guys want to add before we get on out of here?
No, you just, Jewel, I don't know if we should put this one up. You look like you've been punished. You look so sad. No, I mean, you really do. It's a downer. It's just, I feel bad that I felt bad about yesterday, and that was my contribution. I feel bad about this today. It's like let's get my third favorite film out of the way so we can feel bad about all three of them.
No,
This is just like so. I feel like somebody died.
Yeah, but I'll stand up for Jewel in this way, and that is, some films you don't easily get the first time around. Sometimes when you watch it the first time, you kind of, maybe you've got it on in the background, maybe you're not focused. It may not get to you the first time. This is a movie that I think works on so many levels. It's like, to me, it took me 2 or 3 times to go from, oh, this is all right, to loving this film. And sometimes, it's, there's nothing wrong with you or the film, Patrick. I guess what I'm saying is it's Joel's fault. It's all on him.
And MoMA backs me up on that.
No, there's nothing. Look, there's nothing wrong with this movie. I said it's a good movie. I just don't find it funny the way you guys do. If you guys find it funny, that's great. You should. It's a movie you both love, and that you find humorous and funny. I just don't.
Jewel, yeah, but Jewel, to be fair, you once and I apologize for interrupting, Patrick. Once in this podcast, you actually said out loud, and I'm giving a direct quote, "I don't mind child murder."
Yeah, I mean, Jewel, this is a very strange moralistic turn of events.
Because when I said that, do you know why I said that? Because there is no more genre blackballed than horror.
Oh, really?
Well,
that's what the genre Ross Meyer came from.
When you think about, let me use my favorite Western as an example, because I love the movie Once Upon a Time in the West. Okay. When the boy gets shot by Henry Fonda, now they don't necessarily show him getting shot to a degree. They show the bullet, the gun being shot, and then you see the train smoke through the barrel. But then you see the hole in the boy's chest that, Fonda's character Frank did shoot him. Now, I have no problem with that there, because it's fiction. Every movie we watch, for the most part, is fiction, unless it's based on an actual event or a real life occurrence. But if it's a horror movie that does that same thing that Once Upon a Time in the West did, hell be damned, there will be hell to pay. Somebody will be, it'll be on the news, it'll be bitched about through the internet. It could, Jason Voorhees could pick up a revolver and plug a kid, and somebody will find a problem with it. Mm-hmm. Not that he would do that. He would more pick up a machete and stab it through your chest. But you get my point.
I do, and I will.
When I say that I don't mind a child in a fictional story getting killed, I'm more preferencing that for horror, or just in general for a story. If you're writing a story that involves murder, and by the way, this story, there's murder.
Yes, there is. A lot of people call this a slasher movie.
I don't mind a character getting killed off, whether it's man, woman, or child. Mm-hmm. Especially if it fits the message or narrative you're trying to send, that no one is safe. If no one is safe, then okay, no one is safe. All bets are off. Mm-hmm. Here's when people are gathered in a room in a slasher, the more people, the better, because you have that feeling of safety. But when there's a movie like this, to a degree, where, hey, one person was killing, a bunch of people in a room, so numbers didn't matter, you have that degree of unpredictability now. I wouldn't call this a slasher
well, you have to take it up with the people who did. I did that. I'm just saying it has been referred to.
I wouldn't call this a slasher, but I would call this a very entertaining, dramatic film. Now,
And see,
again,
I wouldn't call it dramatic at all, because it doesn't take itself in my opinion, it doesn't take itself seriously.
How do you contend with the statement by both Meyer and Ebert that as they were writing the movie, because they would write different sections of it in offices across a hallway, that they would hear each other laughing hysterically, and they would run in and see, what are you laughing at? I decided to make Z-Man a woman, and they would both just fall out of their chairs laughing. And this happened every day, that they were topping each other. Why did they find it funny? Did they not know what they were doing?
No. Let me
There advised them, no, you boys are doing a drama, right?
let me put it to you this way. When I'm writing a story, whether I'm killing somebody off or no matter what, I'll just find it funny. Because why? It's fiction. It's not real.
But this isn't funny. So how does that? I just want to know what's going on.
Look, I'm just saying. Look, the writers finding what they're writing in this story funny. Fine, then find it funny. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong for finding it funny.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I don't find it funny. I'm not saying there aren't funny moments in this movie. There are.
That's fine. It's just it is an interesting take on the film that I have never heard. It doesn't make it wrong. Doesn't make it wrong. Your take is your take. But I have never heard someone, and in a way it is a testament to the quality of writing in the movie, because for a satire to work, it has to be an operating example of what it's satirizing. Like if you see Airplane, you have to actually care about whether or not they land the plane. The dramatic stakes have to matter. So for you, I get the feeling the dramatic stakes in this really mattered.
They do, and here's the thing too. One of the scenes that sort of made me go like, "Oh my god," was when the aunt and the one woman are having, a relationship, and that this one woman, she's laying in bed, and the man comes in there with the gun, and he puts it in her mouth, and I'm thinking, "Oh Jesus Christ!"
Yeah,
It's that moment is so heavy, and the way they play it is really smart.
It is a hugely controversial moment. And Russ Meyer, let me tell you, there is an essay in one of our Monster Serial books about his movie Super Vixens that I wrote. And I write about the character of Harry Sledge, played by Charles Napier, as one of cinema's great monsters.
Mm-hmm.
And you should go take a look at that.
I will. Is that on the Collins Port Historical Society, or
it probably is? Also, I think we reprinted all of those. I'll take a look right now.
If it is, send it to me, and I'll put a link in the description. But for this, I really did enjoy the movie. It's not a movie that when I watched it, I liked it for what it is. At least to me, it's a very enjoyable piece. My only real issue with it is because they make such compelling characters, both Meyer and the critic. They both make such compelling characters. I feel doing the narration at the end, it's like, dude, for the hour and some odd minutes this movie is, you had me all the way through from start to finish. You don't need that narration.
Yeah. It's just, this is a very interesting take, and I just feel bad because you look so sad about it. You do. I mean, I've encountered people in a moral outrage over the movie. Oh yeah. I'm not saying you are. I've encountered, people getting a real snit over these things. But this is you realize this is a very Rob Zombie movie, right?
Yeah.
It's a very Tarantino, Rob Zombie they're very influenced by this film.
My mom did not give a shit what we watched as long as we understood it was fake.
Yeah.
Again, I had a very from a movie standpoint, I had a very carefree mother who, look, entertainment is entertainment is what she once told us when you're watching a movie. Unless it's based on an actual event, then you need to research the event as well, because sometimes with movies, they take certain liberties or they're not telling the exact accuracy of the event. I'll give a great example of this too. In every Wyatt Earp movie, when they do the gunfight at the OK Corral, now the two most accurate are Wyatt Earp and Tombstone, but here's the thing. None of the movies that involve that event have the snow on the ground. It was snowing the day that happened in Arizona, in Tombstone. So, and again, that's in none of the movies. But when I researched it after watching the movie Tombstone, I was like, wow, that's interesting. I did, the things you don't know about actual historical events, and then you learn them. It's like, I wonder, why that's just, again, I wonder why that's never been included in any of the movies, that it was snowing. Because here's the thing, when you look at where Tombstone is, Tombstone's near the mountains. That's why it gets the snow it gets.
I think I may have the answer for why, you're talking about the shootout at the OK Corral.
Yes.
There's a reason why a lot of that kind of details were not released, which is that in 1921, there was a biography of Wyatt Earp that whitewashed a lot of his history. And that's where a lot of Hollywood producers were getting his backstory. One of the things that a lot of people don't know about, after the shootout at the OK Corral, Wyatt Earp and his brothers were actually put on trial.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Because it wasn't a case of that clear cut. And Earp later on, after Tombstone, actually got into a bit of controversy because he was hired to be a referee at fights.
Yeah.
So he would be the guy who'd determine go out, and he had it got out. There were rumors that he was paid to, in one particular fight, one guy would win, but he would call for the other guy. And in the fight, the one guy, it was one of those situations where the one guy hit the other guy, and it looked like this guy was the clear winner, but Earp called for that guy. And so in fact, there was became common slang in these, I think in some places, where if you make a mistake, but we know you're making the mistake for your own benefit, you warped it.
Yeah.
So, Jewel,
Yes.
Will you give me a moment for this?
Sure.
You're a mensch. It is not online, but I want to share some of this Super Vixens thing, because it really gets to the heart of horror and Russ Meyer. And so I talk about this really terrifying sequence in Super Vixens, which was a movie made after this. And Harry Sledge is the bad guy, and he's played by Charles Napier. Harry Sledge is truly an odd duck out. In the sequence and movie to come, I don't think he serves as Meyer's avatar. It's not wish fulfillment of how he would have liked to have socked it to Edie in the holodeck. It's confessional, I think. It was his way of saying, this is where I was terrified I could go. I am so scared by that knowledge, I have to put that man on screen. Only then can I make a monster out of him and show that he must be destroyed. You want to talk about objectification. The character of Harry Sledge is objectification. It's Russ making a voodoo doll of all of the evil he knows he could muster and then burning it. So If you haven't seen the movie, you must be wondering what the hell does Harry do? I'll tell you. Harry and Super Angel are going to fool around, but Harry is impotent. This is shown in some outrageously cartoonish ways, and that exaggerates things just enough for Meyer to distance himself. Having no idea or every idea of how hurtful she's being, Super Angel begins to humiliate him with a shrillness much like the drone that would rise behind Heath Ledger's Joker. She is used to Clint's ineffectual responses. She has no idea that she has encountered an equal. She has no idea that her evil has only grown in the garden protected by chivalry. She has no idea that her target would think nothing of simply smiling and very efficiently punching her in the solar plexus with all of his strength. She tries to give back. He even encourages her, laughing at her attempts to injure him as he bats objects away. When she runs into a bathroom and locks the door, we suddenly see what a child he is. In bizarrely incongruous saddle shoes, he can't break the hollow cord door down. Knowing this, Super Angel decides to taunt him, drunk on the sudden reversal of fortunes and forever severing what little audience sympathy that might have been growing. His response? Get a knife and stab the door. Was Stanley Kubrick taking notes? The knife even gets stuck in it. This is funny to Super Angel. Hell, she's filled the bathtub for a relaxing soak and cranked up, yes, we all know where this is going, the radio. She just doesn't know she's dealing with someone who will bash the door in on top of her, knife point first, and then put his weight on it as it presses and impales her. In the sloshing bathtub, studio rock music blaring and water churning in, Harry continues to beat her and beat her and beat her. But that's not enough. He then stomps up and down on her, the water churning up a strange, thinned Kool-Aid red. The stomping is ridiculous. Harry looks, even for serial killers, like a bizarre kid. But these things go on. They happen in real life. And the idea that we could find them ridiculous is maybe scarier than the acts themselves. Harry will not be stopped by the desire to look cool. No, nothing stops him. As Super Angel lifts a hand from the blindingly red water, Harry drops in the radio as a final touch, and we see him revel, palms upward like a Sith villain in full mania. I'll go on record as saying this is one more image that George Lucas probably ripped off. After this, the rest of the movie just happens. Yeah, Russ Meyer knew his horror. I mean, he really knew his horror. And Super Vixens is genuine horror. I mean, it is mind-bending in that sense. And there are hints of that in Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good stuff, Patrick. Good stuff, buddy.
No. Yes. Harry Sledge, horrifying figure. Those are interesting books, Jewel. You know, I'll tell you, if you ever want to do another read-along or something, those books have a lot of different essays by a lot of different people, but they look at various horror films, I think, very well. And it's sort of a prequel to the Day Book because it was kind of like Wallace training me to then turn that stuff on Dark Shadows.
Yeah. This movie is really good. I give it a 8 out of 10. What do you guys give it?
It's one of my 3 favorite films.
I give it a 12 out of 10.
Yeah, I 2 thumbs up.
Cool. What are you guys doing Tuesday?
Whatever you want, boss. What do you want to do?
I know we were supposed to do a Dark Shadows episode, and it is Gordon's turn. Gordon, what was your episode?
979.
We'll do that Tuesday night. Is 9:45 p.m. good for you guys?
It's fine for me.
Yep,
Michael,
good for me.
let's do a movie you can get excited about. We want to excite you.
Okay, I'll pick a movie for the weekend, and it's a movie I always watch before October because it has horror.
Well, you know it's November now, so you can't watch it because it's after October.
I watched it
next year.
I've watched it recently. I watched it prior to the October this year, but it's a movie I watch every year before October because though it has horror elements, it's not horror itself.
Okay.
It is Spirited Away.
It's a great movie.
Yeah,
What
it's a fun movie.
fantastic film.
Let's see. How's Sunday night for that for you guys?
Very appropriate.
Okay. That's a movie I very, very much enjoy. But so really good movie. Go check out Valley of the Dolls. Really Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. Sorry. I do like the what they say at the beginning of the movie for the lettering. That was really good. That I liked.
Yeah, well, they had to do that for legal reasons.
Yeah, I got that. That's
So
it's like, oh wow, somebody didn't want to get sued.
Well, there was an actual threat of a lawsuit. So they were doing that as a CYA maneuver.
Well, here's the thing though, too. Like sometimes you'll hear about like stuff like ripping off of somebody else. Like here's the thing. Batman got away with ripping off of the Shadow. I mean, very clearly. But it's nice to see that that's not always the case.
Well, this is probably an argument for another time, but Batman did not rip off the Shadow. Bill Finger was an avid pulp reader because they borrowed elements from the Shadow, from Zorro, from the Black Bat. And one of these days, I'm going to have to school you on the pulp character, the Black Bat. Because Jewel, you got some learning you need to do.
You will admit
and the spider, you need to know about the spider.
You will admit that they did take they did tracing of partners' apparel, right? Like you'll admit that, right?
Yeah, they did tracing, but let's also be real clear. We're boring Patrick, and I don't think he wants to hear this argument.
I just want the viewers to know that I am a neutral observer.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god!
But seriously, look up the Spider at Grant Stockbridge, and read some of those novels. They're actually better than the Shadow.
That's a tall order. That's a tall order.
Also, the Grant Conan McCormick's The Pudenda is an important pulp.
Yeah, you got to read that.
Yeah.
Go check out Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. Really, really good movie. It was a lot of fun discussing it with you guys. Sorry for the seriousness of
it's okay. We just want to make sure you're okay. I was Julie and make sure you're
Yeah, I mean, you're acting like we forced you to watch Solo.
I love that movie. God, I love that movie. That takes me to a happy place. I love that. Salo is so much fun. There's a new little documentary. It's like 15 minutes on Pasolini and his death on YouTube right now. It's good too, because the guy that confessed to it was forced to claim that he killed Pasolini, but didn't, because it's like this weird far right wing like group that kind of threatened that they would kill his whole family if he didn't take the rap for it. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
But this was fun, guys. I'll see you guys Tuesday for another Dark Shadows episode. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, what's left of it, and I'll see you guys Tuesday night.
Sniff wisely.